Hello dear student and viewers, this is Professor Ashok Kumar and you are watching me on our video lecture series. Dear student, through this video lecture series we are providing numbers of video lectures on various subjects which covers numbers of topics and subtopics. So as a part of that, today we are going to discuss chapter number 7 and that is beams and columns. This chapter basically, as you know, that comes in fundamental of machine design subject in fourth semester degree mechanical engineering. This is actually third consecutive lectures on my video lecture on same chapter, chapter number 7, beams and columns. In previous my two video lecture on this same chapter, I have discussed a lot on beams. That means we have discussed about the types of beam, types of load, types of supports. Few examples we have solved. We have also discussed about the types of mode of failure of beam, types of various stresses that are acting on it, and numbers of examples we have discussed. Now it's time to discuss a little bit more about this chapter. So this chapter will definitely include a little bit portion, remaining portion of beams, and remaining lecture we will discuss on particular columns. First and most important the topic that we are going to cover is the deflection of beam. If you have attended my second video lecture on this chapter, then you might have seen that the mode of beam failure, or we can say that beam may get stress in three ways. One is bending stress, second one was the shear stress, and third one was the deflection. So in that particular video lecture, I have covered both first two, bending stress and shear stress. Now it's time to discuss the third kind of the failure, that is the failure due to deflection. First of all, let me inform you that the deflection of any kind of beam is only and only possible whenever there is some kind of external force or a system of forces. That means if more than one forces are acting, then definitely it goes to have the deflection of that particular beam. Generally, beam deflection is purely depends on the cross-sectional, or we can say that geometrical dimension of a particular cross-section of beam and the amount of bending moment. And one more thing that I would like to add in is that whatever the load that is act on particular beam, and due to that the beam may get deflected. So we can say that the force and the deflection, if you are multiplying, it will become a work. So ultimately, in conclusion, we can say that the deflection force goes to have the deflection, and both of the physical properties, it results into external work. So whatever the work you have applied, or the work is induced by the external loading and deflection, is stored in particular beam as a strain energy. Suppose you require to design a beam, then there are basically two criteria upon which you have the perfect design of beam. One is the strength, and second is stiffness. If you are designing the beam on the basis of strength criteria, then it should be your beam should be resist the bending and shear stress. But if you are selecting the beam, or the design mode of beam is on stiffness, then your beam should resist the deflection due to external load acting over that particular beam. Then in more depth, let's have the one theorem, one famous theorem, which is used to calculate the deflection of beam, and that is Castigliano's theorem. Look at the first statement, and then we will have the detailed discussion on its the statement. It states that when an elastic body is subjected to a system of forces, whatever the deflection is produced at any point and in any direction is always equal to the partial derivative of total strain energy with respect to a force at that point and acting in that direction. That means, or in short, Castellino said that suppose you require to calculate the deflection due to external load, just you have to take the ratio of partial derivative of strain energy and external loading. To understand well such as theorem, let's look at the diagram. You have given one simply supported beam, and there is a section you have given, section 1 and section 2. A load W1 is acting at section 1 and load W2 that is acting at section 2. Now suppose by using Castellani's theorem, you require to calculate the deflection on respective section, that means delta 1 and delta 2. Just you have to calculate the strain energy that is produced on section 1 and strain energy produced on section 2. So over here, first of all, you require to calculate the derivatives of strain energy, and it should be divided with that particular load acting on that section. So it gives delta 1, that means the deflection of the particular section, section number 1. Similarly, you can follow for the section 2 also. So in general, we can conclude the Castellani's theorem is look like that. For any kind of beam, at any section, you require to calculate, if you require to calculate the deflection, just you have the ratio of partial derivative of strain energy that is stored and that on that particular section due to external work, and it will be divided with whatever the loading acting over it. So it will give us a deflection on that particular section. Now, after discussing that Castellani's theorem, let's have its application where it is used. First and most kind of application it finds in complex and simple structure. That means Castellani's theorem is used in both of the cases, in simple structure as well as complex structure. That means suppose you have given one simply supported beam, and various types of forces and loads and various moments are acting. That means if there is a complicated structure or complicated beam and you require to calculate deflection of force, you should to go through Castellani's theorem, you will have the deflection. Second important application it's found in the also to calculate the reaction. That means especially in case of indeterminate structure, you require to calculate reaction. You just use to Castellani's theorem. Also, this theorem is used where there is no load on particular section. Suppose there is a simply supported beam, and out of many sections, if you require to have the deflection at such section where or over which there is no load. So, by using Castellani's theorem, you can have the deflection calculation over that section too, just by putting the dummy load over there, and by following the same procedure that was told by Castellani, you will have the deflection magnitude at that particular section where there is no loading. Then after point number 3 that we are going to discuss, and that is that the strain energy for the different loads. In initial of this my video lecture, we have also discussed that the strain energy stored in terms of work done, and work done is happened due to external load and deflection. So strain energy plays a vital role in this particular chapter, or we can say that analysis of beam. So first and most important load that is acting is an axial load. Suppose there is any beam and over which there is an axial load acting, then what should be the magnitude of strain energy? It will cover in these sections. So look at the diagram first. You will give you have given one section of beam, and that horizontal section over which there is a load P is acting. Now, the length of the beam is capital L, and out of that particular sections, numbers of sections, you just have to select one simple and small sections. Due to external loading P, this small section get deflected by delta d delta. And if we are talking about the entire deflection of the whole beam, then it will be the delta. Now look at the right hand side diagram, then we will have the strain energy calculation. Right hand side diagram is just shows the relation between external loading P, and due to this external loading, the deflection occurs in particular beam sections. So this is the loading versus deflection diagram. From the diagram, one can easily understand that as you increasing the loading intensity, your deflection of beam or section deflection of the any section will going to be increased. So over here we have taken initially this small section, and we have increased the loading like that. So by increasing such a loading, you will have the deflection like that. If you are talking about the entire beam section, then if you are increasing P, deflection will be increased. So this is what the diagram says about the relation between external loading and deflection. Now, as we know that strain energy is always equal to work done. So first of all, you require to calculate work done, and that is equal to strain energy. So initially, your equation should be like that: work done is equal to strain energy, and that is equal to area of that particular diagram. We know that any diagram represent the work. Over here, if you are multiplying P into delta, uh, definitely it will give the work done. So over here, 1/2 P into delta, that will become the work done, and that is equal to strain energy. By simplifying and putting the values of delta, or we can say that by simplifying that equation, you will have the strain energy is equal to P square into L upon T 2EA. Here P square, that is external loading, L is equal to length of beam that you have selected, E stand for Young modulus, and A is equal to cross-sectional area of horizontal structure member. So this is what about the strain energy, particularly stored in terms of work done for particular small area, this small area. Suppose you require to calculate the strain energy for the entire structure, then just you have to make an integration like that. And by solving that, you will have the strain energy stored in particular entire span of a beam due to external loading. Now after that, suppose the types of load is a little bit differ, and there is a torsional load in place of axial load, then what will be the strain energy? Well, look at the first diagram. Torsional load is acting on particular circular section. Let it is a shaft. So over here, a pair of forces acting in opposite direction having same magnitude, it causes the torsional moments. So we can date that is the force F is equal to torsional load. This is the 5 represent the angular deflection of any fiber due to that particular torsional load. And right hand side, similarly, there is a relation between torque and angular deformation. As you are increasing torque, your angular deflection of rotating member will also increase. So first of all, you require to calculate work done, that is equal to 2 into force into deflection, and ultimately it will become from the diagram torque into delta phi. Now, this work done is always equal to strain energy stored, but this is for small element. Suppose you require to calculate total strain energy, then you should to calculate the area of that particular diagram. That means this. So it will become 1/2 5 into T. By simplifying this relation, you will have T square into L upon 2GJ. Over here, T stand for the torque, L is equal to length of shaft, our rotating member, G is equal to modulus of rigidity, and J stand for the polar modulus. Now, after calculating the strain energy, and suppose you require to calculate the strain energy of entire section, then just you have to put the just you have to take an integration between 0 to L limit. L is the maximum limit and 0 is the initial limit. By solving that, you will have the strain energy that is stored due to external loading of entire span or entire beam. And let's, after discussion on various theories on particular strain energy, let's have the few examples to solve. First example that you have given is, look at the diagram. You have given one cantilever beam and it is 0.5 meter in length. Vertical load 1000 Newton is acting in freehand. free end, and the cross section dimension like depth and width you have given 40 mm and 30 mm, whereas young modulus stand for 210 into 10 raised to 3 Newton per mm square. That means uh, it is also given. Now, first of all, you require to calculate bending moment. So from the diagram, one can easily find the bending moment. Force into perpendicular distance, force into perpendicular distance. So first of all, just calculate the bending moment like that. And we know that for the relation of the strain energy is equal to m square dx 2ei. By integrating and putting that value, you will have this relation 0 to L of integration minus fx square into dx into 2ei. Now, by simplification, you will have the relation of strain energy U is equal to F square into L cube upon 6EI. Now, just you require to have the deflection because example demands to calculate deflection delta, and just for that deflection, just you have to follow the Castellani's theorem, and it is simple ratio of du upon df. That means you have to take the ratio of partial derivative of strain energy that is stored upon whatever the external loading or external force delta f. By putting the values of u over here and by simplifying it, you will have the equation or the relation for the deflection is fl cube upon 3ei. And by putting that all that value that you have already given in example over here, ultimately you are finding delta is equal to 1.24 mm, that is the deflection of beam. Then after, dear student, we have discussed and completed a major portion of this chapter, that was beam. Now similar portion comes to discuss herein, that is the column. Basically, column is a vertical structure and always subjected to an axial compressive force. Suppose you are finding any structural member which has horizontal, not horizontal, but vertical orientation, and always uh, subjected with compressive force, then it will become column. Look at the diagram. From the diagram, you can easily differentiate the column, beam, and strut. Uh, in case of beam, we have already discussed that beam is always in horizontal position, whereas column is always in vertical position. Strut may be inclined, or we can say that as per the application. So this is what the column and its definition. Look at the right hand side diagram. All three vertical members are there, and compressive load due to this dead weight is acting over here. So we can say that this is all three structural members are known as a column. Generally, a strut and column are similar in geometric structural and details, except its position. That means from the diagram, you can see that strut is located at inclined position, whereas column is always located in vertical position. Also, it transfer whatever the load that is acting over the column at top, it transfer that load at the bottom side. That means it transfer load from roof to floor. Also, it is supported by fixed support at the both of the ends, because a column are always tends to sustain the compressive load, and that's why it is fixed at the both of the end. Generally, if you are looking at the similar kind of structure or the member is positioned in inclined position, then it will be no longer known as a column, but it will be termed as a strut. Now, after basic and introduction of column, let's have the mode of failure of column that may possible due to external compressive load. First of all, is it's very easy to everyone that due to compressive load, excessive compressive load, it may possible that column gets compression. So compression failure is quite possible in case of column. If you are designing a column, then you might have take care of the compressive load, because it directly affect the compressive failure of any column. But compression failure is only happening whenever there is a short member, and due to that external load, length of that particular column, if decreased, then and then we can say that there is a compressive failure. Suppose there is a column and you are increasing the intensity of external compressive loading beyond the elastic limit of that particular material of column, then it may possible that it fell. So after failure mode, we are going to discuss on a specific theory, that is Euler's column theory. As we know that mode of failure are in of two types. One is failure occurs due to compressive stress or compressive load. Another is failure due to buckling or bending of that column. But it's very easy to calculate the failure under compressive stress or compressive load. So over here we will discuss the failure under buckling load, and for that there is one very famous theory is there. That is the Euler's column theory. Basically, it is based on bending stress theory. Bending equation is applicable, and on that way, you will have the bending stress calculation. Also, particular in that Euler's theory, whatever the failure occurs due to direct stress or compressive stress is neglected over here. And before starting that Euler's column theory, Euler's have made a few considerations while deriving this theory. First consideration or rejection is that the column was initially perfect straight and axially loaded. That means if you are analyzing with the column, then before applying any kind of load, it is perfectly straight and axially loaded. Material of column is homogeneous, isotropic, and elastic. That means within elastic limit, it have the proportional relation with stress and strain. Material is same for each and every cross section, and isotropic too. Cross section of column is uniform for every cross section, for every, or we can say that at every section. Suppose you have selected column having a rectangular section, then top to bottom, whatever the section are there, it has the same uniform rectangular cross section. As compared to it, cross-sectional dimension, cross-sectional geometrical dimension, the length of column is very high, very large. So this is the theory belongs from the large column theory. Fifth one, due to compressive load, whatever the length of that column is decreased, it should be neglected or ignored, and particularly in this Euler's theory. And last one is failure is only possible due to buckling load, not compressive load or direct load, because the failure of compressive or direct load in this theory, it is neglected. Now, what Eulers give the relation? Eulers have derive a relation for critical load. That means up to that particular load, your column will not buckle. Above and over which, if you are increasing external load, means suppose critical load is 50 kilonewton, and your column is subjected with 51 kilonewton, it may possible that it will fail under the buckling load. So Euler have first derived the relation for critical load, and that is pi square EI upon LE square. By further simplification, LE square, that is effective length, that is reduced by LE upon K whole square. So ultimately, final equation will become C pi square EA upon L upon K whole square. Over here, E stand for Young modulus, K for cross-sectional area, K is the radius of gyration, LE that is the effective length, and which is equal to L upon root C, where C is the end fixity coefficient, which depends on the types of end condition that is used for various columns. Now look at the diagram over here. There is the actually relation between effective length and original length. Look at the column in which there are two pin support is over there. So ultimately, the relation for the LE is equal to L, and value for K is equal to 1. Suppose the column which is located, or we can say that the end of column is like that. One end is fixed, another is free. At that time, the relation stand for LE is equal to 2 into capital L, where we can say that capital L is equal to length of column between two ends. So over here k finds its value, k is equal to 2. If the column is subjected with two ends which are fixed and column is mounted like, so effective length become the half of the total or original length of column. And at that time k is equal to 0.5 should be taken. And last one, suppose column has one end is pin supported and other end is fixed supported. At that time effective length is equal to 0.7 to original length, and k stand its value for 0.7. So this is the what about the column and its diagram, or we can say that the condition of column with respect to different end conditions. Now, after discussing Euler's theorem, Euler's theory, and its application, let's have the discussion on some limitation of Euler's theory. Now, we all know that the Euler's equation is P is equal to pi square E upon LE whole square. So ultimately, Euler's creeping trace becomes sigma E is equal to P by N, that is equal to pi square E LE upon K whole square. So by presently consider the column is made from mild steel and elastic stress is equal to 320. So ultimately by solving that equation you will have the ratio of LE by K, and that is nearly equal to 80. So this LE upon K, that means the ratio of LE, that is effective length upon radius of gyration, is over here is 80. And this ratio is generally known as slenderness ratio. If slenderness ratio is less than 80 for any particular column, then Euler's theory is never applicable there. This is the limitation. Suppose you are designing any column and you are finding that the slenderness ratio coming below the 80, then Euler's theory is not applicable. So in conclusion, we can say that if you, slenderness ratio is more than 80, then column is known as a long column, whereas if it is less than 80, the column that you are designing, it will be known as a short column. Now after that column discussion, basic detailing, and the few design concepts, let's have the few examples to be shown. First example that you have given, that 4 meter long, there is a one column with external and internal diameter is 40 and 25 mm, and it is extended by 4.8 mm under the tensile load of 60 kilonewton. That means you have given a column having 14 and 25 mm outer and internal diameter, and 4.8 mm is the tensile deformation due to external 60 kilonewton load. So you have to find the buckling load with both of the ends are P. So over here condition is that both the ends are pin in case of this example, and you have to find the safe load 2 on cube, and factor of safety that you have given is equal to 5. So this is what about the example and its data. Now in order to calculate buckling load, we require to have the calculation of area A and moment of inertia, then after strain that is formed due to 60 kilonewton, and elasticity. So starting from the area of column, it is very easy. A is equal to pi by 4 d square minus d square, and by putting that value of 40 and 25 as a outer and internal diameter, you will have 765 point something mm square. In similar way, we know that for hollow circular section, moment of inertia can be found out by pi by 64 d raised to 4 minus small d raised to 4, and ultimately it will give 106,500 mm raised to 4, that is moment of inertia. And after that 60 kilo Newton of load, we require to have the calculation of strain, and strain is equal to change in length upon original length. That is, by putting that value, you will have the 0.0012, that is the strain. Once you are calculating strain, area, and moment of inertia, now it's very easy to calculate modulus of elasticity. And modulus of elasticity is very easy calculated by load upon area into strain, like that. By putting that value, you will have the modulus of elasticity is equal to 65,290 Newton per mm square. Now, as we know that Euler's buckling relation require effective length. So for the effective length, as we have discussed in previous slide, over here, this example have the column which are fixed at the both of the ends. So the pin at the both of the ends. So in that particular case where the column is pinned at the both of the ends, then effective length becomes small l or equal length. So over here, LE is equal to L, and that is already you have given 4 into 10 raised to 3 mm. Now by using basic Euler's relation pi square EI upon LE square, and by putting all that relevant value over here, you will have the Euler's load that is equal to 4.29 kilonewton. So this is how we can have the calculation of critical load over Euler load. Now, one more thing that we require from example is that you have to calculate the safe load. Safe load, that means up to which your column is not buckled. So for calculating safe load, just you have to divide buckle load that you have calculated by using Euler's buckling load divided by factor of safety. So by putting that both of the values, you will have 0.858 kilonewton, that is the safe load. That clearly means that up to that 0.858 of kilonewton of the load, buckling load, the given column in example will never fail at the end. One more theory is like Euler's, that is the J.B.Johnson's formula, which is used for the calculation of the buckling load, or we can say that the critical load. So according to Professor Johnson, he had derived a relation. Critical load is equal to SYC into A bracket 1 minus SYC upon LE case whole square 4 pi square E. Over here, SYC stand for the yield strength in compression for the given material. A is equal to cross-sectional area. L effective length that we have already discussed. K is the radius of gyration. E, that is the Young modulus for given column material. So this is what the Professor Johnson's formula. What he did actually, he has equate Euler's equation for critical load as well what he derived about the critical load over here. So by equating both of the equation, Euler's and Johnson's equation, there is a one relation to be found, and that is x is equal to under root 2 pi square E upon SYC. So from that relation, one may easily see that if the slenderness ratio LE upon K is greater than C, then the column will be known as a long column, and we all know that long column, if is given to you, then Euler's theory is only applicable. But in case of you found that the slenderness ratio is below the LE upon K is less than C, then there will be a short column, and which can be applicable for the Johnson's theory. So this is what about the long and short column theory that can be used for the different condition. Now look at the diagram that you have given. From the diagram, you can easily see that horizontal axis is denoted by slenderness ratio, whereas vertical is denoted by external loading. So by looking that diagram, look at this. If you are increasing LE and slenderness ratio is going to be increased, so over here this curvature represent actually Euler's region. That is clearly meant to be here is that within this region Euler's theory can be applicable, because in this particular theory LE is greater than C. So over here LE is greater than C, that means uh, above and through this point or region Euler's theory is easily applicable, and this region represent slenderness ratio that is greater than C. Now, out of the slenderness ratio, if you are finding that is less than C, then it may possible that you are falling in this region. So this region is definitely covers the short column, and short column if you have, then only Johnson formula is applicable here. So this is what about particular application, specific application of Euler's theory and Johnson's theory. Now, after that, one more theory is there, and it is very much important because it combines both of the previous theory, or J.B. Johnson's theory as well, Euler's theory, and that is the Rankine formula. What Rankine said, Rankine have given one simple and sober relation, that is, according to Rankine, 1 upon P R is equal to, that means Rankine critical load is equal to 1 upon critical load for J.B. Johnson's formula, and it should be sum up with 1 upon PE, that means Euler's formula, the critical load for Euler's formula. So by simplification, you will have the PR is equal to PC upon 1 plus PC upon PE. That is what the Rankine have derived the relation. Now by putting that particular value, PC is equal to sigma C into A, PE is equal to pi square ELE upon K, and by simplifying that relation, ultimately you are getting the new relation about Rankine formula, that is PR is equal to sigma C into A 1 plus A LE upon K no square, where A stands for the Rankine constant and depends on the material of column. Generally 1 upon 75,000 for mild steel should be taken, whereas if aluminum is there, then it should be taken as 1 upon 5,000. Sorry, for mild steel 1 upon 7,500 and 1 upon 5,000 for aluminum if material of column is made from the aluminum. So this is what the Rankine formula and its application. Look at the diagram over here. That is the slenderness ratio versus critical stress diagram is there. From the diagram, one may easily understand that this region represents Euler's region. That means within that particular region, there is a long column theory can be applicable, and it is only used whenever there is a Euler's theory. But this particular region where slenderness ratio is very low, mean less than 80, at that time, at particular that region, you can apply a Rankine formula. But by carefully looking that it start Rankine's curve start from below 82 to 120 and more than 120. So from that diagram, one may easily conclude that the Rankine's theory is not only applicable for short column, but it is also applicable for a long column. Now let's have the few example. Example number one, that is just you have to find the Euler's crippling or critical load for the hollow cylindrical steel column having the 30 mm external diameter and 2.5 mm is the thickness. Length of the particular column is 2.3 meter you have given, and a hinge at the both end. You have also given a Young modulus is equal to 205 gigapascal, and you also require to calculate crippling load by using the Rankine's theory, and you have given the constant Rankine constant is equal to 1 upon 7500, and the stress that is equal to 335 megapascal. So by using that example data, let's have the solution of this example. First of all, you require to calculate Euler's crippling load, and Euler's equation required moment of inertia and effective length. So it's very easy to calculate moment of inertia of hollow cylindrical column, that is pi by 64 d raised to 4 minus small d raised to 4. By putting that value, you will have Euler's in a particular crippling load. You required I, and I, that is moment of inertia, that is equal to 14.05 into 10 raised to 3 into pi mm raised to 4. Whereas both of the ends are pin here in, that's why effective length become original length, and that is you have given 2.3 in 10 raised to 3 mm. So by putting all that relevant value in Euler's equation and making solution, you will have the crippling load nearly equal to 16.88 kilonewton. Similarly, you can solve the equation and calculate the Rankine critical load by using its equation that we have already discussed in previous slide. By carefully looking at the equation, just you require to calculate area and radius of gyration. all other parameters that you have already given in your example. So first of all, in order to calculate area, it's very easy. Pi by 4 d square minus d square. By putting that value, you will have the area like that. And radius of gyration, we all know that it is equal to under root I upon a. Moment of inertia should be placed over here, area should be placed over here. So ultimately, you will have radius of gyration is equal to 12.6 mm. Now, by putting that all the relevant values in that particular equation, that is the critical load for the Rankine, and by solving it, you will have the load that is equal to 17.16 kilonewton Rankine crippling over critical load. So dear student, in this lecture specifically we have discussed a little bit portion that was remaining from the content beam, and most majority of this lecture we have covered the column, its failure, mode of failure, various theories, Euler's, Rankine's, and of course at the end we have solved a few examples. I hope that by attending this lecture, you have boosting your subject knowledge. Still, you are finding any difficulty or having the problem to solve example, or to, difficult to understand any derivation from any theories, let me inform. Thank you. Thank you very much. Kindly stay tuned with us and connected with our video lecture series, because as you know that we are providing numbers of lecture day by day and updating every day. Thank you very much.